Okay. So I start this on every podcast because I'm always curious. What was that one thing that really got you wanting to be an entrepreneur, getting into marketing? What was that one moment that really got you excited about being an entrepreneur, excited about marketing?
Oh, yeah, it's been a while. Guess it's time for a little trip down the memory lane, huh? Because this is our 17th year in business.
Oh
So
wow.
I don't know that it was a moment, but I can definitely think back of a seed that was planted. And I was in my 20s. I was working for a web design agency in Fort Lauderdale. It was my first job after moving to the States from Europe. And I was very young, very stubborn. I am still very stubborn, not as young anymore, but stubbornness prevailed. And I used to butt heads with my boss all the time. I would argue, I would talk back. I was the worst employee in that sense. Really thinking back, I back then, as most 20 somethings, I thought I knew it all. Now I realize I didn't know much. And during one of those exchanges with my boss at the time, and this was a very small agency, it was like 5 people, maybe six total. He told me, Madalina, one day when you have your own agency, you're going to do things your way, but now you're going to do it my way. And what I heard in that moment was, wait, you mean I could have my own agency? That moment was sort of like permission to think bigger.
Yeah.
So even to this day, I considered the boss I had at the time one of my informal mentors because I've learned a lot during those short years at the agency, but also he's the one who gave me permission to think bigger, that I could one day have my own agency.
So did you
So,
learn what not to do?
oh, for sure. Absolutely. To this day, I still learn a lot of what not to do from various situations, whether things I do myself, and then I learn what not to do from interactions with clients and in sales and partners and so on. But definitely, I learned what not to do, at least at that time, right? I was going to do things differently because I knew better, of course. Why else?
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2008, uh, but a year or so later after that, that the opportunity came up for me to branch off and do my own thing. I saw things shifting in the economy. I didn't understand much. I didn't understand what a recession was or what the economy was
Yeah.
doing at the time. All I knew is that the agency was losing clients, things were not going that well. So in my head, I thought, why wait for the ship to sink? I'm just gonna jump off and build my own little paper boat to swim away.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I started what was then called Bright Pink Studio and built it from there. A couple months later, my sister joined me. She had just graduated from computer science and was working in application development and decided, yep, let's learn web development and join forces. And we've been partners in the business ever since. And that's how it started.
So, what was the nerve wracking part about starting your own business? Let's say, like, hey, you were an employee going to a business center. There had to be some kind of fear. It's like, oh, can I do this? What happens if I fail? Was there any like um, internal thoughts and fears?
There really wasn't at the time because I was young. I had no kids. I was renting. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. So in my head was, what's the worst that can happen? If
Yeah,
it fails, I'll just go out and get a job. And it never crossed my mind. Failure was not on the list. I never even thought of it. I figured I'll just start small. I'll freelance. I'll look. I mean, I got some of my first clients on Craigslist. Okay,
Yeah.
that's where I went and put out my ad. I was a graphic designer. I'm looking for clients, and I kid you not, one of those first clients that I acquired maybe month two of me freelancing stayed a client for probably 10 years afterwards. So you just never know. And I never really had that fear of how am I going to make ends meet? What if it fails? What if it doesn't work out? Until much later. And it was at a time when now we had employees. Now I was responsible for other people's well being and for their ability to make a paycheck and bring a paycheck home and provide for their families. So that to me hit differently. That was the first sense of responsibility that I got, where I realized I cannot fail, because if I fail, then I let down these people. And then later on, I had kids and I had a mortgage and all the other grown up responsibilities were like, well, now I really cannot fail.
So from that transition from the employee to the business owners, what was a couple of things that you did differently? Like, hey, I'm going to add value. I want to do this. If when I did it, when I originally started Bright Pink Studios, what was the original like offering? Like, hey, this is what we can do better than what we were leaving.
Well, as an employee, I was a graphic designer, designing websites mostly. So I wanted to offer that service, and I thought I would do it better. Fewer layers of intervention in between what I produce and what the client is reviewing. So, really, at that time, I thought that was the value, direct opportunity to work with the artist rather than a lot of red tape in the middle. Now thinking back, of course that was the case working with an employee, or with a freelancer rather, but at an agency level things don't really work that way. And but I think even to this moment, now that we're an agency and we do have the multiple layers, we have the strategic layer and the execution layer, we do make a point to this day to have those relationships between our client and their account manager, and even some key people on the execution level, to have those conversations directly. So there's no so much he said, she said, here's what I think maybe the client wants. Like, we want our team who works on the execution level to hear some of this information firsthand. They're
Yeah.
part of that kickoff meeting. They're part of the strategic decision making process. So they know what they're executing for, right? They might not have to hold the conversation necessarily or be the ones who ask the questions, but hearing information firsthand, not necessarily interpreted, really helps. And I feel like that's one of the things that came out of those early days and still stuck to this day, although it's been through some transformations throughout the years.
Yeah. So from like 17 years in business, marketing has changed a lot. So what have you seen it change from when you originally got into the business, and how has it really evolved to what it is now?
Oh gosh, where do we even start?
So
Everything.
very beginning. I mean, 17 years. I mean, what was 17? What was 17 years ago? What was marketing 17 years ago?
17 years ago, it was a mix of everything, and SEO wasn't truly a thing like it became afterwards. You were supposed to have a website, not necessarily to optimize a website. That was not even part of the conversation. The agency I had worked for, yes, it was a web design agency, but we did other things as well. So we were pretty much full service. And then when I started my agency, we became for a short period full service because that's what was needed at that time, and that's what we needed to kind of validate our offering. But as social media marketing, I mean, people were using social media just for socially, just for themselves. It wasn't until a couple of years later that companies decided, okay, yeah, well, now we need a strategy. Now we need to market ourselves on social media. So I saw that happening within the lifespan of my agency. And then SEO went through so many transformations throughout these years. It went from, oh, we just need keywords, oh, we need backlinks, keyword stuffing, all the black hat stuff. I saw all of that happening. Then we need pillar content, and then to go all the way from that to where it is today with the EEAT model, and now of course with the AI complicating everything.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey. It's been Marketing has evolved from trying to game and trick the system into, all right, let's go back and look what's really useful for the end consumer of that message. And that's how it should have been all along. But yeah, I guess it was a journey to get here.
See, I love that you said that when you talk about the end consumer, what they value. So, what do you think the end consumer values right now?
Speed,
Speed.
convenience, and relevance and accuracy. Honestly, I think that's why so many consumers now, so many consumers, and I think consumers, it's all of us, and I don't mean B2C or B2B. I don't see B2B as being different in that sense, because at the end of the day, still one person is consuming that message. So we're all consumers in a sense, but we all gravitate towards AI and makes this searches in ChatGPT or Perplexity or Google in AI mode, because we want to cut through that noise and get to what's relevant quickly, and get it in a way that is more closely aligned to our intent, right? And it seems like AI is able to predict that intent so much better than the experience that we're used to just kind of like rummaging through a bunch of search results and finding our own answers. And I mean, that evolved since you asked about the evolution of that. Think how much more scrolling we used to have to do in Google, years back. Nowadays, nobody look past first five positions for anything, and with AI overviews, you just read that. So I think that was a response to what people want. We
Yeah.
want it now, and we want it relevant.
You mentioned brand and being like getting past the noise. I think like from a branding perspective, that's really important for like even like a small business owner, etc. Is like what be intentional of what your customers what you want your customers to know from you. So getting past all that noise, what do you see from that? Because there is so much noise from a company that's trying to establish their marketing plan, establish their brand. How do they really go about figuring out what that message is in such a like a noisy social media marketing, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about content briefly, right? Like how important content is. And I think a lot of brands approach content is, we need to output content. Let's output a lot of content. And that is the type of tactic that produces a lot of noise, because it's just based on tactics and trying to emulate what others are doing. But if we roll back and think of, what does the end consumer want to see? What are their pain points? What do they want to read? How can we be of use to them? And then aligning our offering to that, that is a much better strategy than simply throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what
Posting
sticks.
3 or 4 5 times a day just because Gary Vee says.
Well, I mean, post 3 or 5 times a day if you have something original to say, right? Not
Yeah.
if you're just gonna repackage what everybody else is saying. That's not the way to do it, and it's not gonna stick. And right now, I don't know. I saw some statistics, and I forget the exact number, but a great majority of the web, of the internet right now, the content you see out there is AI generated,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of it's the noise is getting worse. That's why Google itself is having a harder time indexing new content. It can't keep up with the output of content and indexing, cataloging, all of that. So it's gotten a lot harder, and that's why go back and see, what is it that your consumers actually want to read? What are they curious about? What's their immediate need or pain point that you are able to address in your content, and that's what you should put out there.
I like that. Yeah, and even when I created our YouTube thumbnail, it was generated by AI. It's AI is great, but it's not. It's not. I think they're there yet. At least from like creating content, etc. You can easily tell the difference between. I guess if they just put it on AI.
Yeah, and I think, look, I'm not anti-AI. On the contrary, I love AI. I use it daily. I use it strategically. But if you're just gonna replace if you're going to replace your thinking with AI thinking, that's where it's not going to go well. And it's going to be obvious in a sense that it comes off as inauthentic, right?
Yeah.
So I was just listening earlier this morning to a webinar with Neil Patel, and he was saying how they experimented with some blogs where they wrote towards the top of the blog, they put the author either as human, written by human, or written by AI, edited by a human, or nothing at all. And or no, or just written by AI. And what do you think performed best?
The one that wasn't AI at all.
The one that says, and by the way, this was the same content, this was an experiment with the same content. So that disclosure that written by a human, or put the, not necessarily written by a human, but put someone's name and credentials attached to that piece of content, is always going to perform best. Because yeah, we all love AI, but at the end of the day, we want content that we can trust.
Did they do that for like maybe those people liked it because it said it was by human? Like how like if you say things are American made, that's gonna resonate with more people rather than saying oh it's by AI. So my thing is like they didn't show who it was and they have them a little differently. I wonder if the AI one would have done better than them saying it was by a human.
I believe it was the same content, but because they put that disclaimer or the author name at the top, that's what caused it to perform differently, right? Because
Yeah.
you can measure things like time on site and how long till someone leaves the page and so on. And yeah, it comes to show that we still want authentic content.
Yeah.
So let's give people authentic content, which is why we're here creating authentic content, right?
So what's your opinion on so I think like most people are asking ChatGPT, hey, where can I go get to buy food, or where can I do this? Who should I use for a plumber in my area? So with the growing trend of people, rather than people asking Google, they're asking ChatGPT. How does a business owner really stand out if it's not necessarily Google getting on top of the Google search as much as like they're asking ChatGPT? And how does that usually work?
So I guess a lot of businesses nowadays are wondering, what can I do to be the one recommended by ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever I either using? How can I show up in AI overviews? How can I get some more of that AI traffic? And people are starting to notice they do get the anecdotal mention in ChatGPT or their clients. It happened to us. We were told on discovery calls, like, yes, I found you guys on Perplexity or I found you on ChatGPT. And we've heard that from our clients as well. So everyone is now wondering, how can I make that happen? Turns out the same things that help you rank better in Google and regular search is what helps you stand out in AI search as well. In particular, authoritative content, unique authoritative content. Now, this is not everything. Of course, there are a couple of things that need to be done uh, to help the content rank better in AI. In particular, schema markup. This is something that you don't see as a user. If you look at a page, you can't tell what schema markup is on there, but that's code added in the back that tells AI bots and other bots what kind of content that is. If this is an FAQ, by the way, pages that have schema markup for their FAQs tend to rank, I want to say, about 14% better that those that don't have that. Because if AI is looking for answers, for quick answers, and something is marked up as question and answer, that's a very easy indicator that that's relevant content. So schema markup is one of them. The other part being structuring your content in a way that's readable not just for humans, but for humans and robots as well. The TLDR in the beginning, the summary, all of that, super relevant because that's what tells the robots, like, all right, here's a summary. I'm gonna index the rest, and I'm gonna offer the rest as a result. So there's a lot of technical things you can do, but honestly, I'd be surprised if those amount to maybe 10% of the all the different things you can do to make your content more useful, more authoritative, more trusted. What's going to help Google rank you in those first few positions is going to help you rank in AI overviews and in other AI searches as well. That's why the most powerful brands out there are the ones that get cited in AI as well, not just on show up on Google.
So how important, like with the landscape, if everything's more like social media, everyone wants cares about their wants to be micro influencers. Um, how important is your social media page compared to like your website? Do you see any like of like say your Instagram account has like 50,000 followers, or hey, I'm building a website. Where do you like if you're um, giving advice for a small business, or where and why should you spend your most of your time and
Ooh,
money?
that's a loaded question. Obviously, we're big proponents of make sure your website is your single source of truth, right? But and also it's where you build on your own land versus rented land. But having a presence on social media is important, is very important. Look, Instagram opened up now where it the posts get indexed by Google, so everyone needs to go back and reevaluate what they did on Instagram, whether on their personal page or on their
Good or
business
bad?
pages. Yeah, to make sure that do you want that out in the open when someone is searching your name, because there can be some surprises. And also, what's the strategy going forward? Keywords more, should we treat Instagram more like LinkedIn now? And AI is definitely going to these different places as sources of content, and different AIs have different agreements with different sources of content. I believe ChatGPT has an agreement with Reddit, for instance, so they do index Reddit content. And I believe also the same with LinkedIn content. LinkedIn content definitely gets indexed on or gets read by AI and is part of that sort of authority building, right? So
Yeah.
I believe you have to be everywhere that where your audience is. If your audience is on X, be on X. If your audience is on LinkedIn, be on LinkedIn. If it's on Instagram, be on Instagram or TikTok or all the other. Yes, TikTok also gets indexed or uh, gets often referred in AI responses. So does YouTube and YouTube Shorts and all of that. In fact, most of the AI responses, um, research type responses, will include video sources as well. So definitely be everywhere.
Yeah, which is hard because I mean, from it's hard to be at all places and be good in all places. So you have to if you have to prioritize where I'm going to spend my time as like a small business owner or someone just getting started. Where should you prioritize your time first? Are you looking like, hey, if you're B2B, do this. If you're B2C, do this. Where are your consumers? Like, how? What's your kind of approach on spending or advocating your most of your time at?
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. It is hard to be everywhere and do a good job everywhere. And I would say definitely pick one or two places where you're gonna go all in and put that content there, whether that's YouTube or LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram. You can be everywhere. And once you've mastered one, definitely tackle others, or within your team, whoever else is part of your business development, marketing, and so on, they can tackle different aspects of it. But it really varies by business. Someone who's marketing to consumers may be better off on Facebook or Instagram if it's very visual, right? Like that would be something that definitely belongs on Instagram. If you can create video content, short form content. TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts are the place to be.
Hey,
LinkedIn has
LinkedIn's got reels now too.
LinkedIn has been pushing video a lot as well. Exactly, but go where your audience is. Like for us as a franchise web design agency, our audience is mostly on LinkedIn. So that's where most of our effort create LinkedIn content for the business page, and of course, I create content myself. I have a newsletter up on LinkedIn. Articles, the type of thought leadership and authority building content that it really is most suitable for LinkedIn. Like you wouldn't see that on long form content like that on Instagram. That's just not what it's for. So it depends on every business.
So you've told me one time of a trick to do is like, hey, make your website for your consumer, and I guess did you do the same thing for your social media page? Is like, hey, you're making this for your potential client, and like even you mentioned between yous and me's on a website. Do you do that same thing across multiple platforms? Like that's that part of the strategy?
Yeah. Well, I have this thing ingrained in my brain, right, from a long time ago. Whenever you write, you're not addressing the masses. You're not sitting somewhere, you're not standing on a stage and you're speaking to an audience of hundreds of people listening to you all at once. And it's easy to fall into that trap that that's what you're doing when you're sending an email to an email list, or when you're sending a social media message and everyone sees it at once. No, one person at a time is reading it. That's why you got to make that transition back into the consumer's shoes and kind of look at it from their perspective. It takes empathy to do that, because you got to put yourself into that customer's shoes, and what do they want to read, why would that be interesting to them, why would that hook them, what's in it for them. So in that sense, every piece of content you put out there is not about something, it's for someone. Your website is not about your company, it's for your potential clients. Your social media messaging is not about you, unless it's truly social, as in you're just sharing something with your family, friends, and that's what, if that's your audience, they want to know what you're doing, where you're on vacation, and what you're eating and stuff like that. But if you're not that kind of influencer, think about it. Even influencers, right? When they put out content, it's seemingly about them, but in reality, the reason why it works is if it's because it's for the person viewing, like, oh, I want that, I want to be like
Yeah.
that, I want to be her, right?
Yeah.
She's got great skin, great hair, I want whatever she's using. So that's th- that kind of mind shift towards thinking, what does my consumer want to see, want to read, want to look at? That's what's going to make your content successful. So when it comes to websites, yes, we have this, the simplest thing to do is look at your website and count how many we and I do this and we do this and this is how we help, versus you, because that's what's gonna notice, that's what your visitor's gonna notice. You don't want to be that person at a party who's just talking about themselves all day.
Yeah.
It's boring.
Because even what we've done for our team is like, how do we like? I think there's a big disconnect for even us or even other small businesses. What you're selling isn't necessarily the reason why your customer is buying. So how do you figure that out? Is there like a tricks that you really think? How do you put yourself into that scenario from that mind of that consumer or your customer?
I don't think there's a trick. Honestly, there's no trick. It starts with listening. Listen what they're saying. Active listening, not listen to respond, but listen to actually understand. Because I'll just give you an example. On a recent discovery call, the prospect was telling us the problems with their website. There were some integration issues, some technical issues, a lot of pain points there. And then I keep asking question like, what else is important for this website to succeed? And then they tell me, well, SEO is top level importance for us. But you see, they didn't lead with that, right? So clearly the pain points were about the technical difficulties they're dealing with right now. That's the immediate pain, because SEO is, yes, is what they need and they're aware of that, but until those immediate, until we stop the bleed, we can't really talk about long-term wellness and health and all of that, right? So it's kind of like triage. Try to find out what's really most important to that client first. So listening comes in obviously in discovery calls, and I'm talking about that because I'm involved a lot in that step in our business process. But listen everywhere in the monthly meetings that the account managers have with our clients. Interview your clients to find your current clients, because that's how you find out patterns. And if 10 of your clients are telling you the same thing, it's that, for instance, that they chose you because you did this differently than other brands that they maybe compared you with at the time. And that's how you're going to find out, oh, okay, well, I guess there are others like them. They're not unique, and they probably have very similar pain points. And then you craft your marketing message to address those pain points. Your service is your service, and you know how good you are, right? And what your product. They don't know that, and they don't really care how good your product is until they know how much you care about solving their
Yeah,
problem.
I agree. So let's say you identify the problem, you have the strategy. How does a small business or even a company execute that? Like you have the strategy. Hey, I know what my customers want. What's some tricks that you've done that helped you execute? Like you mentioned, you have a strategy team and an execute team. What's the difference and how do you kind of put it together?
Well, we typically start every project. So we build websites, right? We build them. First, part one, we build them, and then we continuously maintain them, optimize them, measure performance, and so on. During that build process, the first month of our engagement is the most critical part, because that's when we do all sorts of auditing and planning and putting down those building blocks of what's coming later. And we build a roadmap. Then we start executing that. We build that website. We write the content not based on vibes, but what the audit told us that that content should be reflecting. And we launch that, and then we measure. And as we measure things, we see how well what we assumed in the beginning is performing, and then we adapt that periodically. We meet with our clients monthly, but we do audit those roadmaps quarterly, because things change a lot and you can't wait a full year to say, whoops, that didn't work, so
Yeah,
change of strategy now. So a lot of it, especially once you're done launching a website, it's a lot of monitoring and experimenting with new things. That's what marketing is. It's a lot of like experimentation, and then doing more of what works while it works. And as it stops working, coming up, with new ideas. Well, eventually everything stops working, so you kind of have to constantly come up with new ideas and new solutions and new ways to drive results for any brand, whether you do it for your own brand or for a client, like we do. So I'm not sure if that answers your
no, it
your
does.
question.
So, from like a someone who's trying to grow their business from a marketing perspective, what are some of like the easy, like low hanging fruit that they can do to help them just get started, get going? Because for even a small business owner, trying to be everything for everyone. CEO, CMO, CFO, everyone. What are some of the like low hanging fruit that they can really use to like kind of get themselves going for marketing?
Out of Obviously, I'm a strong believer that the website needs to be correctly set up to offer someone the correct information about your brand. Because whether you're going to do paid or SEO, whether you're going to do networking and events, whether you're going to do brand awareness campaigns, PR, whatever it is, when someone searches for your name and they go to the website, is that the message? Is that a correct message about your brand? And is it client focused? Is it current? I can't tell you how many times we audit websites where there's simply outdated information on there. So, really, that's where it starts. And it's very hard as the business owner to be always aware of what's going on there, because at some point you stop seeing, right? Like you're so overly familiar with your own marketing, so you don't see anymore what may be off, what used to be okay in the past and it's no longer okay. So it really helps to bring that third party in to look at your marketing, let all of your marketing, whether it's maybe your newest employee, like what, look at this and tell me with fresh eyes what it is, uh, what it tells you. Or have an agency, have someone else look at your marketing, because you are not going to see your own blind spots as
Uh,
easily,
I
right?
love that. Good point.
And then it's got to be a mix. It's never one thing. Yes, you can just kickstart your business by running pay per click, right? That's the easiest way to get leads. It's great. You need those first few clients, and that's the easiest way to acquire them. But that is not in itself a strategy, because you're just gonna keep paying, and as soon as you stop paying, the phone stops ringing. You don't want to do that. You want to do your SEO as well, because yes, it takes longer, but don't you want those, quote unquote free leads in the future? Maybe not today, but in the future you should have that. And then there's all the other things, like being there, being out there, whether you're a local business and you want to be, the mayor of your town, everyone should know you and what you do. Be at all the events, get involved in charitable organizations, support your community in any way you can. Or even at, if your audience is national or international, be at the events that matter for your industry, and network and show up as a brand. PR also increasingly important, especially now when AI is looking for authority. You can't have your website mentioned, or your brand mentioned just on your website. That is you talking about yourself. You got to get others to talk about you to other brands, whether it's LinkedIn, or get articles written, or show up on podcasts, or everything that you can to get your brand mentioned elsewhere. Is going to benefit your brand.
So, do you think paid advertising is kind of going to go away a little bit with the how social media is pretty much fueled by organic, even with ChatGPT? Does paid advertising really pay do it like affect ChatGPT? Like, hey, I'm trying to get the first keyword in this, but does AI really do that? They look at more organic, or what's your thoughts on that? If advertising is kind of going to decrease in the future.
I don't think paid advertising, like pay per click, has a lot to influences AI, showing up in AI in any way. I really don't think it does. There are other forms of paid advertising, not pay per click, like sponsored articles or promoted content in the media that does can help tip the balance in your favor. If you have a sponsored article in Forbes or something, that's authority right there. But PPC still works. I mean, the data doesn't lie, and that's probably why it's so expensive for a lot of businesses, because
Yeah,
there's a lot of competition, and it still works. People still click on ads. Not everyone, probably not you and I, but others do.
not me.
Otherwise, the whole industry would go out of business.
So if you had like obviously no one's got a crystal ball, but where do you see the future heading? I can just give my opinion because I could be on the hot seat as well. I think everything's gonna be drawn by organic. I think organics matter, like being paid advertising, etc. To get in the top spot on like Google. I don't think it's gonna be, my opinion, is as big a deal as like organic brand is like pretty much everything, being known as the expert in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell where it's headed. I think, first of all, Google and SEO isn't going anywhere. So if you've been anywhere on the internet in the past couple months and you've seen SEO is dead, that is just hype. That is just hype. It's not dead. It is changing, but it definitely is alive and well. Google is alive and well. It's still growing, and they have a very powerful AI themselves, right? Gemini is really
Yeah.
powerful AI mode, so it's changing. I think if, again, I'm gonna go back to focus on the consumer. If everyone created marketing messaging and content that is genuinely useful to a consumer, really, and with that, tell better stories. Put a story into all of your messaging. That's gonna help in so many ways, because stories are usually original content, and that's what AI wants. They don't want the same repackaged AI generated content that's already out there, clouding everything, cluttering the internet. They want original content. They want your perspective, not some AI generated thought leadership. They AI wants to see that originality, and if you do things with the consumer in mind, with empathy, and tell some stories, tell good stories, whether they're case studies or founder stories, whatever they may be, that's how you're going to win the internet in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think the power of a story is never going to go away. I think it's probably the most powerful thing in marketing. So, for a business who's trying to figure out what their brand story is, creating a story around their business, how do they really go about doing that?
Well, I guess it's helpful to go back to what drove them to start that business. And I think anyone can find an angle of that that relates to what it is that they do right now. And I get it, there's investors and people who buy it because it's a good investment opportunity and so on. But if you're trying to create a connection with your audience, people want to know who they're doing business with. They want to know who's behind that brand, that there's a human there who cares about them. And hearing that story of a founder or a business leader, it really helps, like, humanize it, put a human face on it. Every business needs to have someone, a human, represented. So it's not us and the collective, it's whether it's the founder or someone else who's the public face of that company needs to step forward and represent that business, because that's what people want to see.
So you're a big fan of like founder led marketing, like how you see like Nick Bear with BPN. You see like a lot of these big brands popping up, or like Logan Paul with Prime. They've like embodied that. Is that what you see like more along the trend? You see more founder led marketing, CEO led marketing, like the CEO is the face, and it's their mission, their story. Is that kind of what you mean?
I think that works at big brand level, but also at local business level. Look, a lot of our clients are franchisees of the franchisors that we work with. So they are locally owned and operated small businesses. And even at that level, they're not the founder of the franchise brand, right? They didn't found the brand. They bought into a concept. But they are there, boots on the ground, representing that brand. And if they believe in what they do, and they wear the logo everywhere they go, they show up in the branded vehicles everywhere, they sponsor, they show up in their community, they put out messages, they're the first ones to lend a hand when the community is going through a rough time and all of that. That's how they put their face on their brand, and their name gets associated with that brand because they are the brand in that community. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be the one who started the company to do that, but you bought into that dream and you brought it locally, and then you embody the values of that brand locally, and you layer onto that your own values, and that's how you bring value in that community, and you create that connection between consumer and brand.
What about for like maybe a business, or hey, I don't want to be in the media. I don't want anyone to know who I am or what I do. What do you think about that? Like, but he still wants to grow a business. Like, how do you like? Do you think that like it's kind of the old way? You can't do that anymore. What's your thoughts on that?
You can't hide behind the logo. I really don't think you can hide behind a logo. You can be, in the community, show up at the Chamber of Commerce meetings and your BNI meetings and your other networking events. But if you're not online, you're just gonna miss out. That's the reality. If the founder or the owner of the business isn't comfortable, there are ways to work on that. I was not brought
Me
into this
neither.
world confident in my ability to to speak in public or show up on camera or any of that. I had to work on it, and a lot of the most successful business owners like that out there had to do the same thing. So there's definitely ways, but if you're adamant about not wanting to do that, then hire someone who's going to be that
That
face and
face.
voice in the community or whatever you're marketing. There's no way around that. Otherwise, you're just going to miss out on this whole world out there beyond your zip code.
I like it. So, what are the like when you talk about branding and getting out there? It's mainly like, hey, like even on the website, get like telling your story, like, hey, why I got started.
Starts there, but honestly, I believe in having an authentic and unique voice on LinkedIn. I'm B2B, so that's where my space is.
You're bright pink.
I'm very pink. I'm pink everywhere. I wear pink. If I show up in yellow, everyone gets confused. Don't know who I am anymore. I get confused sometimes. Like, who even am I?
Yeah.
So I do believe in showing up in a meaningful way and more authentic way. Look, I wasn't born knowing how to do any of this. There's been a lot of trial and error, a lot of watching what others do and doing what I felt worked and applied to our brand. And I've just observed and learned, and then I had to become vulnerable and put myself out there whether I liked it or not, and telling those personal stories mixed in with the client stories. You can't just go in and put, oh, I went to so and so conference, great, but okay, what does that mean to you, or what's a meaningful experience you had lately or recently, and how does that help you in your business or help the client, or how does that translate into something that someone can relate to, right? So oftentimes it's the personal stories. I have a newsletter. I've had a newsletter for a really long time, but it wasn't until early this year that I started weaving in those personal stories. And I'll tell you, the response rate has been so much greater ever since I started doing that. I've heard people tell me, oh, you're not like other newsletters. I actually enjoy reading yours because you have a story and it's more meaningful, it's more relatable. I get people replying to my emails. So that definitely helped me, keep going with it. Again, marketing, it's experimenting. If it works, keep doing more of that. And you can still relay your message about your business in there, but we're all bombarded with just advertising and marketing all the time, and it's all saturated. And the ones that stick are the stories.
Yeah.
So
Love
always
that.
always lead with a story. There's always a story anywhere you look.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned email campaigns. Do you still see the value in that? Because there's so many spam, there's so many like scammers out there. Most of the emails you get usually just push them to spam. So how do you really stand out even in then? Because it's all words. You're trying to tell that story from even from an email.
Yeah, I was surprised myself, but email is going through its second golden age right now. Really, it works remarkably well, and again, it's all measurable. So it's not vibes, it's data, right? We watch the open rates, we watch the click through rates, and all of that, and it definitely still works. I think a couple of things to keep in mind: don't spam. Don't just be out there talk about features and benefits. That's not what people want to read about. The worst thing that I've seen done, the worst offense, is prior to a conference, if you've ever been at a conference, you know the sponsors will get the list of the attendees, and then all the, not all the sponsors, but a lot of them would carpet bomb everyone with the same marketing message before and after. Don't do that. I've done that in
Yeah,
the past, in the
please.
early days. I've done that, learned my lessons. Don't do that. Instead, email to those who really want to hear from you and those who you've created connections with. I don't carpet bomb. I'm very selective who I send those emails to, and I send them as myself, not as Bright Pink Agency. They come from my email with my name, and that's why people want to read them, because they're from me, they're not from some entity, right?
Yeah.
Now the same emails, I go and I put them 2 weeks later on LinkedIn, in a newsletter on LinkedIn, and that one people opted in to subscribe to that. So it's not necessarily just my audience, which is franchisors and CMOs in franchising and so on. It's more everyone, and if they want to read it, great. I was honestly surprised that of the interest in there beyond who I thought my target audience is. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to continue telling stories with a hook that I find that I think will help someone make a meaningful change in their websites too, because that's what the object of my topic is, for my emails. It's called WTF, standing for website tactics for franchises. No cursing in the body of the email yet. Who knows, in the future there may be some cursing. But yeah, my goal with it is just to be helpful, and I think that's why it's been successful.
So how do you identify the right hook? Like you mentioned, finding the hooks in the videos. How do you find the right hook from like a website for that to like really draw them in and get a call into action?
Honestly, the best ideas don't come when you sit down and you're, all right, what's my next idea gonna be? I keep an ideas bank in my notes app on my phone, and whenever I have a shortcut that will instantly create a note in my idea bank. So whether I'm out shopping or I'm brushing my teeth or I'm listening to a podcast or I'm working out and I get an idea, I stop and I jot it down, because otherwise I will forget it and I will never know where to find it again.
Yeah.
So when I sit down and I try to come up with ideas, I don't actually try to come up with ideas. I just go through my repository of ideas and I select the ones that resonate. And you can do that with literally anything. If you know you need more stories, as you come across, you remember a good story or you had an experience that you know you can turn into a good story, then jot that down, because I don't know about you, but I'm busy and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna remember. I'm gonna move on to the next thing.
And nothing's worse than actually having that great idea and you forget and you have no idea how to, what it was. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, from like even the business owners, you've had a long journey. How do you learn to like improve? What's your process about improving your business, improving yourself? What's some of the key things you do to improve yourself as an entrepreneur as well as your business?
Couple things. I read a lot. I love reading. I have part of my books here. I just rearranged my shelf in rainbow color. I read a lot. I listen to podcasts. I measure a lot. I'm a bit of a data nerd, and I love measuring everything, because if you can't measure it, then it's hard to grow.
Yeah.
And I collaborate with smarter people than me, people in my company. We get together, we talk about, we troubleshoot our problems. And then another important piece, which I definitely recommend to every business owner, is find your tribe, find a group of others that you can troubleshoot ideas and you can bounce ideas off. So I am part of a sort of a CEO mastermind. We call it a board. So we are each other's board members in that sense, where we meet monthly and we talk about problems and celebrate each other's successes as well, but also troubleshoot something, because oftentimes you can't really do that internally the same way. And also, you can't read the label from inside the box. You need that
Yeah.
outside pair of eyes, and from different areas of expertise as well, because all I know is marketing. I've always been in marketing. So having perspectives from a CFO, from an HR expert, from someone in expense reduction or other areas of business is super valuable to me, because they give me angles that I've never would have considered before on my own.
I like that. So what would be your if you had to give a recommendations because you love reading books? What would be your best recommendation for like even learn about business development and marketing? What book would you recommend?
Oh gosh, business development marketing.
Or it could just be in general a book that really affected you and changed your perspective. Because mine's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That kind of opened my mind to everything. That and Story Brand.
Story brand, that's a great one. It's definitely on my shelf here. I want to say Marketing Made Simple by Donald Miller. It's a really good book. It's indeed made simple, right? I
Yeah,
actually bought a copy of that book for every single person I hired, and that
there you
was
go.
required reading. We did a book club on it and so on. It really helps and helps you understand the basics. So I definitely, yeah, I would say Marketing Made Simple.
There you
It's a
go.
great place to start. Of course, anything by Seth Godin, of course, is fantastic, and so many others. It's hard to pick just one. Anything about customer experience, if you can just deliver a better experience to your customer, you're winning right there. And happy customers produce more happy customers. And yeah.
Yeah, I think Peter Drucker said, and I think I'm going to butcher the quote, but it says the aim of marketing is to build a product so well that the product fits the customer and pretty much sells itself. So it's
Yeah.
like if you can know your customer, know your touch points, like you mentioned, the selling will be easy because you've already did the legwork.
And it makes marketing a lot easier, really, because you can have the best marketing in the world, but if you fail on the operational side, then you're just selling a dream that's not true.
Yeah. So from the customer's experience, like where customers get like they used to be, we used to get ask a friend like, hey, who do you recommend? And then went to Google reviews. Now, like my wife doesn't even ask people; they go through the Google reviews. Oh, these are good Google reviews. Where do you see is the next opportunity? Do you see Google reviews is still it? Is it going to be ChatGPT next? Where is that? They're going to get where the recommendations or like a good space or expert in that area.
Oh, definitely. People are already asking ChatGPT on recommendations, and ChatGPT will look at things like Google reviews, but not just at Google reviews, depending on what it is that you're selling or representing, right? Like if you're software, it's going to look at reviews about software and other sources. It's going to look at demos and other with third-party sources are going to be a lot more reliable than whatever testimonials you have on your website. So I would say that that's still incredibly important, and it's going to remain important going forward, getting those positive reviews. So, and as you know, it's not enough to just do a good job to earn a good review. You have to ask for it, and you have to follow up on that.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy, but that is one thing that is almost free to do, right? Like ask for that review, and it helps your SEO, it helps you get recommended in AI, it helps you in so many ways.
So, what would be your last piece of advice for a business owner that's just trying to get started, trying to figure it all out, and they're maybe afraid to take a leap?
Well, don't be afraid. You just know that not everything you're gonna try is gonna work, but some things will, and just do more of that. And if you're a franchisee, follow the playbook that the franchisor has given you. And if you are standalone, then get yourself an advisory group, a peer advisory group, because you're gonna learn a lot from others, and you can't figure it all out on your own. You're gonna have to bounce ideas off of others, get that outside perspective, whether it's someone you hire, an agency, or this type of peer advisory groups. And read, listen podcasts. There's so much info. There's no excuses. You can learn so much for free nowadays, just
Yeah.
online. So there's definitely a ton of good information out there.
So how do those people find those specific people? Like if you're trying to build that team of experts, where's the best places to or things to watch out for?
By team of experts, what do you mean? Like the peer advisory group,
Yeah,
or?
because there's always someone selling another mastermind or like thinking like, hey, so here I can make you rich by doing this. Like, how do you really identify like what people are if they're about like
Yeah, I hear what you're
that?
saying, because I definitely still get hit with those messages in my inbox or on LinkedIn all the time. The one I ended up as part of is local here in South Florida. It's a CEO um, group of CEOs called Leading Peers, and it was recommended to me by someone I knew personally, by my financial advisor. So she's the one who said, "Hey, you want to look into this group I've been part of? It's been good." So networking still incredibly
Yeah.
valuable for any business. Make those connections. Say yes if you're in the beginning of the journey. Say yes to every single networking opportunity, even if you feel it's awkward, if you're not ready, you're an introvert, whatever that excuse is. Just push it aside, push through, because it's incredibly powerful for any business. Yes, the internet is great, it's a great place to market, but you got to do your networking too. So
So how do
that's
you get like those people like you mentioned introverts? How do you get them where they like have to or even let's say you're giving one advice. How do you get past that fear of hey I don't want to do this, don't want to get everyone comes to oh I don't want to talk to anyone. How do you get past that threshold because your mind is naturally saying oh I don't do that that's too scary, don't take that leap. Our mind is naturally fighting against this. So how do you almost tell yourself forget you let's do this. How do you do that?
exposure therapy. The more you do it, the easier it gets. I joined my first business group a long time ago. I want to say 12 years ago or so. Maybe no, more like 15 years ago. I don't know, a long time ago. And I did it because of FOMO. I didn't want to miss out. I knew I wasn't cut out for this. I am probably the most stupid person in that group. What could they possibly want to learn from me? I got nothing to offer. But if what am I going to regret more? Going there and making a fool of myself, or showing up and seeing what could possibly happen. And I went there every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m., networked as in like sat there and listened. And then when my turn came, I would introduce myself and here's my business and so on. And it got easier. After a while, it got easier. And then there's another thing I did, because again, I was an introvert, and I was raised with a don't talk to strangers mentality, right? So
Yeah.
it was supposed to keep me safe. And then I moved halfway across the world into a country where I knew like one person. So I had to I had to rebuild my friend groups and all of that,
Yeah.
my network, right? And I did not feel confident to give a presentation or show up in front of people, even in a group of 20 people. I felt like I would turn bright red every time it came my turn to introduce my business. So I joined a group called Toastmasters. They're a
Mm.
nonprofit. They are nationwide, actually international. I joined my local club and I went there and I followed the program. I put myself out there in a safe space where I knew people wouldn't just laugh at me, because they were all there to improve their own skills. And I felt supported and encouraged. So I did that. I went to Toastmasters for a couple of years. I took some leadership positions in that group throughout time, meant to expose me to various positions of leadership, even though I was already, the leader of my company. But my company was small at the time. We were like 6 people. So not exactly hard to be a leader in that context. And that's how it started. And just little by little, I took opportunities and I said yes before I was ready, put myself out there. And the more I did it, the easier it got.
Yeah.
And if I
That's one of
can
my
do it,
weaknesses. That's one of my weaknesses is public speaking. I do not like it. I'm not good at it. And I feel like even when you practice over and over again, you get better. So one thing I did, I had to present for in March presentation for our team, and I actually did it at my house. I presented like 100 times in front of my my two little daughters, and they were ripping me a new one, saying, get off, like let's watch Paw Patrol. Why are you doing this? So if I could handle that, I could handle the stage. So that's how I did it. I got ripped apart by a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and then I was like, okay, I can do this.
right?
So
That's how you grow some thick
yeah,
skin to criticism. We can
yeah,
throw tomatoes at you afterwards. You don't care anymore.
yeah, exactly. So
No,
yeah,
but
just
I
getting out
think,
there.
my thought is like, if I can do it, who I moved in this country 20 years ago without knowing anyone. English is my second language. If I'm able to put myself out there and have a conversation, talk to a group or from a stage, anyone can do it. I was also, I'm a recovering introvert, so
Yeah.
it's absolutely doable.
And one thing that really helped me was, so I think everyone thinks like, oh, I'm gonna look dumb. I don't want to ask this question because it's gonna make me look stupid. Um, One of the things that I realized is everyone is your superior in something. Like I know something that you don't know, and I'm superior in this, but you know something that I don't know, so I'm superior in this. So there's always something, no matter if you're talking to a CEO of loyalty brands or Amazon, Jeff Bezos or Elon. There's something you're better at than they are. So it's and you're never gonna look stupid. You're just just there to learn. So I think that's
Yeah.
very important.
And I think if you show up authentically and from a place of wanting to learn and wanting to share what you know, then people appreciate that, because you don't want to show out there and pretend to be smarter than everyone else, because that just doesn't work and everyone knows that's not true. And also, you
Yeah,
don't want to be the smartest person in the room either, right? Like,
exactly.
you're in the wrong room if you're the smartest person in the room. So yeah, go put yourself out there, because you don't know what opportunities could be out there for you and what they could lead to. I would say that every single networking opportunity I put myself into and I committed to, because it's not enough to just show up once, obviously, has led to really good things for my business and growth in the long term. Nothing I do, I don't expect results tomorrow. I know it's the long game, but I'm here for the long game, not for short term gains.
I agree. So where can people find more about Bright Pink Agency, more about you, maybe getting added to your email and hear more about your stories? Where can they find more information about you?
Yes, you can find more about Bright Pink at brightpinkagency.com, or you can just Google Bright Pink Agency. And I have a newsletter, like I mentioned earlier, so you can sign up on the website, in the footer of the website. But connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there weekly, couple times a week. I love engaging on LinkedIn, and the newsletter is also available there. So I do look forward to connecting. If anything I said today resonated in any way, happy to continue the conversation on LinkedIn. And if you message me on LinkedIn, I'll definitely respond.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on and talking about AI and marketing. I know I got a lot of value from this conversation. I really appreciate you jumping on and talking to us.
Well, thanks, Tyler. This was very enjoyable. From the trip down the memory